And now for something completely different.
Forget everything you've been told by others before. Get ready for the real deal, the full story, real talk about money, markets, life. Now, it's The Real Investment Show with Lance Roberts, presented by RIA Advisors.
And welcome to the show this morning. It's the Hump Day edition of The Real Investment Show. I'm your host, Lance Roberts. Danny Ratliff joining me this morning as well to talk a little bit about taxes. Yeah, we've got to deal with that issue. The administration looking to, continue this idea of more taxes on the wealthy. What is that going to mean to, the average American as well? Because the one thing, about taxes is that they tend to roll downhill. So we'll get into that this morning as well. Talk a little bit more about inflation, what's going on, of course. And I thought it was interesting. Janet Yellen out yesterday saying that, she was wrong about transitory inflation, and now she thinks it's more permanent. Well, here's the problem with Janet Yellen is that she's always wrong, and it's likely she's wrong this time as well. One thing she said importantly, though, yesterday was that, the inflation wasn't caused by the massive bailouts by the American Rescue Plan, right? So she's trying to defend the Biden administration against the inflation push. This has been kind of an all hands on deck situation in the White House lately, is that, inflation isn't our fault. Inflation is everybody else's fault. And of course, what Janet Yellen says is, no, it wasn't the American Rescue Plan. It wasn't sending you those checks in the middle of a shutdown economy that caused inflation by imbalancing supply and demand. Now, she's supposed to be an economist, right? She's running the Treasury. And that's not our fault because there's inflation elsewhere in the world. Well, yeah, that's true. There is inflation elsewhere in the world. The problem is that inflation in the U.S. is about 5 times as high as it is everywhere else in the world. And yes, other countries have inflation for a couple of reasons. One, their economies were shut down too. And when we, flooded our system with a lot of liquidity, we were buying what? Products. And where do those products come from? Other countries, because we don't manufacture here anymore. So that caused inflation in those countries as well. Inflation is not isolated to just a single country. Moreover, the problem is also, yes, caused by, there are some other transient factors that are going on. Russia-Ukraine situation, increasing the price of gasoline. Yes, that's causing inflation on a global basis. But again, when you look at the differential between what the inflation rate is in the U.S. versus what it is in the G20 economies, it's a massive difference. And so, yes, while Janet Yellen says, there's inflation elsewhere too, a lot of it is here in the U.S. because of all that liquidity that we pushed into the economy. But this is the problem with the people that we have governing monetary policy. Jerome Powell, the whole group of them, Janet Yellen included, former head of the Fed. They really operate in a situation where they're so detached from what's going on in the actual economy that they don't realize what their actions do. As an example, more and more of the Fed officials are now coming out talking about, in speeches, addressing the issue of inequality, right? Financial inequality, right? The top 1/10 of 1% have all the assets. Everybody else is just kind of sucking wind at this point. We talked about just last week that there was a survey out that 36% of people making $250,000 a year, now these are mostly millennials, are complaining that they can't make ends meet, right? So they're just getting by on $250,000 a year of income. Hey, I get it, right? Raising a bunch of kids, trying to have a house, go on trips, etc. Stuff's expensive, right? And the more that inflation goes up, the more expensive that gets. But what the Fed fails to address is that the inequality was caused by their actions, right? Flooding the system with liquidity through quantitative easing, forcing interest rates to zero. This led to this inequality in the system. And as we've addressed many times on the show before, all these programs do, quantitative easing, zero interest rate policies, they're a massive wealth transfer effect from the middle class to the wealthy because, again, as that wealth accrues to the upside, it begins to extract capital from downstream. That's just the way that it works. So again, as they talk about these problems that we have, they fail to realize that it's their own actions that cause those problems to begin with. So that's where we are. Yesterday's catch up on the Fed and the Treasury and the ongoing idiocy that runs the economy. But this is why we're in the problems that we're in and not really making much progress. Yesterday, the markets did rally here a bit. That was kind of good news. Started the day down negative. Now, we're going to do this again this morning. Markets are going to open down a little bit this morning. But yesterday, stocks did rally back. Open lower yesterday morning right along that support line over the last 7 days, trading days, right? So all of last week and yesterday and Monday of this week, the market has traded right along a very tight range here and has just continued to test this support on this range. Now, the problem is the bottom of this range has been building some support line. That's good for the market. The problem is the top of this range is right here along these bottoms where we did exactly that same type of action back in April, just kind of flipped around in a very tight range, and then eventually the market broke to the downside. The problem right now is we're doing exactly that same type of action, and the market is now eaten up a very large amount of that oversold condition we had that was allowing this rally to occur. So, we talked about using this rally to, of course, raise a bit of cash, become a little bit more defensive. Yesterday, we did some more of that. We actually even added a very small short S&P 500 position to our portfolios to kind of hedge some of this downside risk, because the markets are really struggling here to advance. And the 50-day moving average is now coming down to sit right on top of this trading range that we're in. So just more and more downward pressure kind of building up in the markets at this moment. So again, use this rally here, raise a little bit of cash, become a little bit more defensive. Now, if the markets can break above this level, around 42.20 on the S&P, got a shot up to 42.50, but that's going to be a whole different ballgame that we'll talk about when we get there. We're not there yet, but again, if we can do that, that would certainly be an encouraging improvement and would suggest that markets are doing a little bit better technically. But right now, just don't see that happening. All the technical trends are negative. We continue to operate within a very defined downtrend within the markets. And, again, this month, starting over the next couple of weeks, we got a lot of things happening. Next week, we've got the Federal Reserve going to be hiking interest rates by at least 50 basis points. That's the expectation. And next Friday, you've got a huge $3.2 trillion options expiration. That's going to provide for a lot more volatility in the markets. And the problem with options expirations, you have no idea what the market's going to do. So it could be up or down depending on how many contracts have to be rewritten at that point and on what side of those contracts are. So again, lots of potential risk here. Not saying that the markets are going to crash lower. I'm just saying is that you're going to have a lot more volatility. We could be stuck in this range a little bit longer. Again, that gets a little bit frustrating, but the longer that we stay in this kind of very tight range, we're eating up all that fuel. Kind of the way the markets work is when they get very oversold, it's like having a full tank of gas. And so it gives the market a lot of room to run higher. Well, what's been happening is that we're sitting there with our foot fully down on the accelerator and the brake at the same time. So the car's spinning tires not going anywhere. That's exactly what's happening, but we're eating up all that fuel that we had in the tank for that rally. So again, just be a little bit cautious here. Don't do anything crazy. Don't go overboard with it, but raise a little bit of cash here. Do a little bit of hedging for right now until we can get a better definition about where the markets are headed to next. All right, quick break. We're going to come back. We'll talk some more about this, the markets, taxes, a whole lot more inflation coming up with Danny Ratliff right after the break. Don't go away.
Get daily investment news you can use, delivered at the speed of the internet at realinvestmentadvice.com.
Hurricane season is here, and along the Texas Gulf Coast, we know how to prepare. What we don't always know is which way the storm will go, and if a hurricane does come your way, whether your house will flood. Fortunately, you can get flood insurance. Unfortunately, flood insurance rates have skyrocketed. Don't be at risk. Let the specialists at RIA Insurance assess your needs and shop your coverage for the best rates possible. Another service from realinvestmentadvice.com. Click on the insurance tab, realinvestmentadvice.com.
Do you know what you don't know when hiring and retaining quality employees? Compensation is more than just wages. It's personal time off, the vacation days, healthcare benefits, a 401k. Do you know what's important to them? Hi, I'm Tom Allen, RIA Advisors Retirement Plan Consultant. Let us show you how to make the most of an affordable, effective package that will deliver true value for your business and your employees. Call me toll-free at 855-RIA-PLAN or online at realinvestmentadvice.com.
Could your job still be at risk? A new normal can still include new obstacles. A severance package can be an emotional as well as a financial decision to consider. Wouldn't it be comforting to review the options for you and your family with an objective financial partner? At RIA Advisors, we're here to help. From severance pay, tax timing decisions to how to maximize unemployment benefits, the RIA team wants to make sure you can do what's best for your family. There's no charge for a consultation, so reach out to RIA Advisors, 855-RIA-PLAN, RIAadvisors.com.
And now, another page from the Real Investment Advisors Investing Manifesto. Bulls win in bull markets. Bears win in bear markets. Eagles soar above and take advantage of opportunity. Let us help you soar as you reach your financial goals with RIA Advisors. Neither bull nor bear. RIA Advisors, 281-501-1791 or online at realinvestmentadvice.com.
The Real Investment Show.
This morning, I'm your host, Lance Roberts. Danny Ratliff joining me as well. Good morning, sir. How are you?
Good morning. Doing well.
Good. So a couple of things this morning. We've kind of been dealing with the potential on and off of more taxes now for the last couple of years. Right after Biden got elected president, everybody was all panicked that we were going to have higher taxes, and we had lots of people coming into the office and saying, "Oh, I gotta reposition everything. Higher taxes are coming," and then of course, nothing ever occurred. So here we go again, though. As we get ready to head into midterm, talking about increasing taxes. We'll see how this plays out. I'm not sure this is the actual strategy to go with into the midterms.
Yeah, especially with all that's going on.
When you have inflation, Russia, you're failing on so many levels right now. Let's just throw gas on the fire. What the hell? Let's just blow the whole thing up. But yeah, I mean it kind of seems to be the issue. But again, look. I don't disagree that higher taxes are coming. It's just a function of when, because when you're running the level of deficit that we're running, and I thought this was great. I just actually wrote an article about this for the Epic Times, talking about Biden. So he's taking credit for reducing the deficit. No, not really.
You're just not spending as much as we spent in the pandemic.
Yeah, right. So so now all that's happened is all that liquidity that was spent has now left the system. So the deficit is falling back. We're actually spending $2.4 trillion more than we were spending before. It's just a function of, it looks like it's less because you're stripped out that $5 trillion we threw in on top of it. So, but again, it's the function of the debt and the deficits. At some point, there's going to be no option but to raise taxes, particularly when you look at the fact that Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, and I've got another article coming out next week on the $96 trillion graveyard of Social Security. So I wrote this one just for Richard. But yeah, I mean, between demographics, and we talked about yesterday, the fact that demographics in the world are basically heading towards zero from a lot of different perspectives, and you just simply don't have enough people contributing to the system. And now with inflation, and you're going to have a much bigger payout for the Social Security adjustment this year, which is going to deplete funds even more. This is just all becoming a problem. So when you have more than 100 cents of every dollar coming, that comes into the system from taxes, more than 100 cents goes out just to pay Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, and interest on the debt. You're going to have to raise tax revenue somewhere.
Well, that demographic issue is huge. You had 43 workers for every retiree back in the day when Social Security was started. Now you have, during the pandemic, it was like 2.4. Right. So significantly different. So the demographic issue is a big part of it. Also how they track it. They use CPIW. I mean, we can get into a long list of things with Social Security. And really what it all boils down to is how are we going to raise more money for that? Not only just for that, but just to keep this thing rolling. I mean, that's part of it.
It's like, just keep partying until the cops come.
Well, they've been here. They've been banging on the door. But it's a problem. So, this is a big part right now. So Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen was speaking before the Senate Finance Committee and House Ways and Means Committee, talking about the fiscal year budget of 2023, which is there really a budget, Lance?
No.
I think we know better. But they're talking about some of the things that and they've very slyly put in the Build Back Better Act. It's assuming that this will be passed as well. I'm not sure that any of this stuff will be done this year. Like you mentioned, I think there's enough headwinds that you're really, you want to throw a wet blanket over the economy. That's a really good way to do so pretty quick. But at the end of the day, here's what they're proposing. And they're going back. And so Joe Manchin, if you guys can recall, last year, like Lance mentioned, we've been back and forth. We were going to get something done. We didn't, which is great. I'm all for keeping taxes low because I want to keep more money in y'all's pocket. However, they're going to have to raise these things at some point. And I think this is going to be a hot topic for years to come, even if nothing comes to fruition right now. So Joe Manchin comes out a couple weeks ago, maybe a month ago, says, you know what, I'm game for raising taxes. So here's what it means for you guys, right? They're talking about raising the corporate tax from 21% back to 28%. We're talking about ending a step up in cost basis. Now, this is huge because right now, we talk about how we can eliminate paying capital gains taxes, because I know that's something that's near and dear to many. And, many times it's, hey, we're going to turn that into a loss, or you can pass, and then your heirs get to step up in cost basis. However, that may not be an option any longer, and not to mention that the change in potential estate taxes, lowering those back down to where they used to be, which could incur much higher taxation overall for families that right now wouldn't have to worry about any of that. Another thing they're talking about doing is actually eliminating capital gains taxes and moving those to ordinary income taxes.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that because that's been kind of one of the issues that has been floated out there is that, so for instance, right now, if I buy and sell a stock, I buy a stock, just so everybody knows what we're talking about here. If I buy a stock on January the 1st and I sell it February 1st, a month later, that increase, that gain, is taxed as a short-term capital gain, which is taxed as normal income. So it's just your normal income tax rate. However, if I sell it on buy it on January the 1st of 2022 and sell it, January the 2nd of 2023, where it's, 1 year and 1 day later, that's now a long-term capital gain that's taxed at 20%, right? So it gets a long-term capital gains tax treatment.
And it depends on the amount, right? So
it depends on the amount.
Income is under a certain amount. It could be at 0%.
Correct.
Or it could be at 15 or 20. So these are all things that we look at within a financial plan, but eliminating that altogether. Yeah, they've been back and forth with so many different options here. It was initially to raise it if it was over a certain amount. Now what the tax foundation has found looking through the notes is that essentially they're talking about just eliminating it altogether. Now, that could change.
Right. But exactly what would that mean? So at the end of the year, let's say that I buy stocks on January the 1st, and at the end of the year, I've got $100,000 worth of unrealized gains in my portfolio. I'm now taxed on my $100,000 worth of unrealized gains for that year?
Oh, wait, you're jumping ahead here, Lance. So, no, right now, currently what this means is that if you realize these capital gains, it will be taxed at your ordinary income tax bracket.
Whether they're short or long term.
Whether they're short or long term. Now, they're also talking about if you make or you have a certain amount of money, if you make a certain amount, $25 million is the current number at the moment. But this is one thing that we don't like even introducing, because the problem is once you introduce some of these things, it's all going to trickle down. It's never enough because they can't stop spending. So they are talking about if you make a certain amount of money that there will be some type of testing that will essentially say, well, you're going to pay an excise tax or a surcharge of 8%, and you're going to have to pay some of these things on unrealized gains. Now, the accounting aspect of trying to tax unrealized gains, when you think about it, because they're worried about the affluent, saying that they have more opportunities than you. And guess what? They're right. When you have money, money makes money, right? You have to have it. And so the issue is that now how do you start, tracking some of these more, and where do you get the numbers from, right? So, okay, are you going to tax the appreciation on a home, your homestead? What about your vacation property? What about investments or REITs or private placements or private equity? I mean, the list goes on. And think about the accounting for this. What a nightmare. I'm sure CPAs love it because the bill's just going higher and higher. But at the end of the day, I don't know how that materializes.
Well, again, this goes back to, again, you hit on an important point. If you have money, it's easy to make money, right? Because you have opportunities to invest in things and do that. And, we talk a lot about wealth inequality. And hey, I get it, right? Wealth inequality is a problem. And a lot of this has not been caused by just, people going out and starting a business. A lot of this wealth inequality, if you trace it down, it's held by a lot of these C-suite executives, Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk, others. They made that wealth through financial markets, where what I mean by that is they took a company public and their stock has now been run up in, into massive valuations. Tesla, as an example, is more highly valued than every other automaker combined. And that's where his wealth came from. Now, whose fault is that? Is that inequality caused by, Elon Musk just coming out and building a product or a car? No, it was caused by the Federal Reserve, all of these interventions into the financial markets that created a lot of this mass speculation we've had in the markets for the last decade, 0% interest rates that caused people to run the value of a stock up that benefited him, right? So we're all mad at the rich people, but we caused it, right? It's all of us retail investors sitting around, buying stocks, wanting to get rich in the stock market, making these guys wealthy. It's nothing they did. And again, this goes back to the point, don't hate the player, hate the game.
We need to change the mindset, though. I mean, I would strive to be that person. I mean, I don't know that I ever need that much money, but
I do.
It wouldn't be bad. I wouldn't complain.
I've got 4 kids. I need that much money.
I hear you. I'm right there behind you.
But no, my point is don't hate the player, hate the game, right? If you want to fix the problem, fix the tax code, right? All these loopholes, opportunity zones for real estate, blah, blah, we keep doing all these changes to the tax code, and then what happens is that individuals with money and a really good tax accountant find ways to avoid paying taxes, right? Which is what everybody would do anyway. It's always interesting to me. We talked about this the other day on the show, Jamie Dimon talking about, the rich don't pay enough taxes. And we've heard Warren Buffett say, I pay more tax, my secretary pays more taxes than me. Hey, guess what? There's nothing stopping you from paying tax, right? You can write a check to the U.S. Treasury Department, the IRS, and say, contribute to the debt on the memo line and send them a check. You can pay all the taxes you want, but it's all great rhetoric. They all talk about, we need to pay more taxes, but these are the guys that are working the tax system.
Well, that's right.
And have entire departments working to lower the tax rate that these companies pay.
But not only that, but think about the companies that they own, the people that they employ, the Social Security, the payroll taxes, all these things that they're not taking into consideration, right? So these are things that, we don't want to necessarily discourage this type of investment and people doing the things they're doing, in the sense that they're the ones you're probably working for. And that's one thing we need to be considerate of. And I think the mindset change needs to be of, hey, you know what? We all need to strive to do better, save as much money as we can on taxes. And you know what? I think I can spend money way better than the government.
You know what? Why don't we give people a tax deduction for saving money?
Hey, there you go.
If you put, $1,000 in your savings account, you get a tax deduction. I like this idea. Be right back.
The Real Investment Advice blog. It's required reading for the informed investor. Catch it today at realinvestmentadvice.com.
In 1999, a parafiduciary group of financial advisors were busted by corporate giants for trying to operate in their clients' best interest. These men promptly escaped from a high-cost margin environment to the Houston Energy Corridor. Today, still excoriated by their former employers, they survive as protectors of others' fortunes. If you have a problem about preserving capital, if no one else can help, and you can find them right here, maybe you should hire the RIA team.
Small businesses are discovering that attracting and retaining top talent come down to more than just salary. In today's highly competitive job market, compensation is more than just wages. Hi, I'm Tom Allen, RIA Advisors Retirement Plan Consultant. Healthcare and retirement plans can make the difference in hiring and retaining the best employees. We can show you how to build an affordable, effective employment package that delivers true value for your workers and your business. Call me toll-free at 855-RIA-PLAN or online at realinvestmentadvice.com.
And now, Another page from the Real Investment Advisors Investing Manifesto. A passive investment portfolio requires active risk management. It's not a choice, it's necessity. Diversification doesn't protect against risk of loss. Let us actively help you reach your financial goals with RIA Advisors. Neither bull nor bear. RIA Advisors, 281-501-1791 or online at realinvestmentadvice.com.
Can't catch the whole show now? Listen to our podcast later at realinvestmentadvice.com.
Danny's always telling me I can't retire, but I've got bad news. I'm heading out to LA to be a lifeguard.
Yeah.
I've been working on my bikini body. I'm going to look good in my Speedo.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, $500,000 a year.
You know, I hate to break this to you, but you know how pilots have age restrictions?
Yeah.
Pretty sure lifeguards do as well. I think you're just over it.
The Real Investment Show podcast
Hey, Maverick's still flying airplanes.
Sure.
And he fly jets at 59. I could be a lifeguard.
at realinvestmentadvice.com.
You could be a CG lifeguard.
Exactly.
Anyone can sell you insurance, and they'll gladly take your premium dollars. The RIA Insurance Agency can provide you with insurance solutions tailor-made for your needs and lifestyle. Because everyone's assets are different, let RIA Insurance review what you need to protect and how. We won't sell you insurance, but what you need will be a matter of policy. RIA Insurance Agency. 888-915-0780. 888-915-0780. RealInvestmentAdvice.com. Click on the insurance tab.
Real Investment Show podcasts are now available from Stitcher Smart Radio at Stitcher.com.
Hi, Lance Roberts here. If you're like most people, your 401k plan represents the bulk of your retirement assets. And unfortunately for many, managing your 401k plan can be difficult. There's so many choices, so many things to consider. With just a quick email, a couple of questions, you can put RIA advisors to work for you managing your 401k plan. It's a quick and easy application. Just simply click Ask a Question at realinvestmentadvice.com or give us a call at 855-RIA-PLAN. That's realinvestmentadvice.com. Enhance your financial success with RIA Advisors' free financial planning tool, MyBlocks. It's our online modular manager for your money and your life. MyBlocks can help to determine how much you'll need and how you can achieve. Create your own personal financial vision for the next decade with MyBlocks, our free tool at RIAadvisors.com.
You're listening to The Real Investment Show.
And welcome back to the show this morning. It's 6:30. I'm just trying to get my thoughts together here. I'm just sitting there looking at our screen. You know, it's true. Cameras add about 10 pounds to you.
I don't know, Lance.
I know for you it's like 20, but you know, there you go.
I look much better in person.
And he's taller. So is Brent. Brent's actually like 6'8".
Oh, yeah.
He's a giant.
Absolutely gorgeous.
Exactly. Anyway, just joking. So I wanted to, we kind of finished up talking this last segment about, trying to get people to save more. And if we really wanted to help people through taxes, and again, it was interesting talking about these, increasing taxes, we're going to offset some of that with tax credits. And, that's going to go to things like when, if you put solar panels on your roof or if you buy an electric car. And I thought it was interesting. One of the congresswomen was bragging about her electric vehicle and how she's not having to worry about gas prices because she's got an electric vehicle. Have you seen what it's costing you to charge your electric vehicle lately?
Yeah, electric bills have gone way up.
Yeah. There's no free lunch here, lady. But the second thing is...
I mean, I'd still argue it's probably cheaper than filling up at the
maybe
gas station. But yeah,
it depends how. I mean, you're filling, but there's a difference, right? You fill up at the gas station once a week.
Yeah,
you fill up more
least.
than I do, but I'm once a week. How often do you fill up?
I'm at least once a week.
Okay,
At
you're
least.
charging every night.
Yeah.
So if you total that up, I'm not so sure it's cheaper than paying for gas.
No,
I haven't done the math. But if you look at the increase in electric bills and figure out what you're charging every night,
I spend over $100 a
well, I
week.
know, but you drive a tank,
Easily.
right?
Easily.
I mean, you driving an M1 Abrams down, I-10 is costly. I mean, just
Hey, man, you got to protect a bunch of kids, these potholes here. But I'll tell you something funny about the electric bill. I left it out the other day. I've been yelling at the kids since they've been out of school. And Michelle, I'm like, hey, shut the door. You know, when he goes out,
if I had a nickel for every time I had to shut that door.
Turn the light off. You leave a room, turn the light off.
You,
and then
you became your dad.
I have. It's scary. So I left a bill out on the counter, and all of a sudden she starts yelling at everybody, shut that door. And I said, oh, what happened here? She goes, I saw that electric bill. I said, yeah. It's crazy.
I know. It's very interesting. I've become my father, too. When I was growing up, my dad was always yelling at us about, shut the door. If I had a nickel for every time I had to shut the door, I'd be a rich man, blah, blah, blah. And leaving the bills out on the counter, he would do that as well. It's like I didn't understand what an electric bill was at that time or what the concept of money, but, he was leaving the bill out.
Oh, it wasn't for the kids. It was for her. And now she's on board. So.
Well, I know, but it's interesting. We all become our parents. Yeah. And anyway, but that all kind of cycles back into this is that, I priced out putting solar panels on my roof. I was curious to see, if I could really save some money, right? And so it was going to be like $60,000, including the tax credit. It was going to be like $60,000 to put panels on my roof. And so I calculated it out, and because I said, okay, well, how much am I going to save every month? They kind of gave me the estimate. It would take me like 32 years to get my money back. So that was with the tax credit. But here's the point: is like, we talk about wealth inequality, and we talk about taxes, and we're going to provide tax credits to people to buy certain things. That's great, but the things we're providing tax credits to are super expensive things that only rich people can buy, right? And for most, somebody making $30,000 isn't driving a Tesla, right? Because they're $60,000 cars. It's just a function of who can actually afford to make those discretionary purchases. Right?
Well, but it shouldn't also be that. We're politicizing all these things, right? We're saying, well, here's our agenda. We're going to give you credit for you helping push forward our agenda,
right? Where
we should be doing it to spur the economy and to drive production,
right?
Which it's completely counterintuitive of what we should actually be doing.
Well, that was my point about before the break, right? You said, look, why don't we give tax credits to people to save money?
Yeah.
Right. So if your income, and we kind of do this in a way, right? And unfortunately, only 25% of the population take advantage of this tax credit. But if you put money into a 401k plan, that's money that you put into savings pre-tax, right? Now, they tax you on it later, but, you get it pre-tax. We should apply that to all savings. If you have an income coming in to the household and you put $5,000 into your bank savings account, no, just follow me through for a second. Just follow me through for a second. Just chill out,
I'm
right? Just you take a tax deduction.
You're triggering me here with the.
I know I'm triggering you, but my reasoning is sound.
Okay.
Ish. It's sound-ish.
All right.
We'll debate on this in a second. But no, my thing is look, the problem we have right now is that nobody has any savings. So look, we talk about the numbers all the time. And, the average American, 80% of Americans can't come up with $500 to meet an emergency. So when you have inflationary pressures, and we wouldn't have to do these bailouts of checks to households and other stuff if we encourage people to save money, right? So give people a reason to save money in the bank by saying, look, if you make $20,000 and you save $5,000 in your savings account, you pay taxes on the remaining 15. Whatever we can do to help you save money would be better. And let me give you an example of what I'm talking about. Consumer credit was up $54 billion last month. Consumer credit rose by that much. So people having to go into credit card debt, which is the worst possible debt to get into because it's super high interest rates and it's predatory in many, many fashions. Mm-hmm. But they went $54 billion more into credit card debt, another $34 billion this month, right? We now have consumer credit higher than it was at the peak of the market before the economic shutdown. And we sent all this money to households where people did actually pay off some credit card debt, right? But you wouldn't have this credit card problem if people had money, had an incentive to save money, right? And B, we wouldn't have to worry about having to send money to households to get them through a tough time in the market if they had savings in the bank. And again, what spurred all this, I was watching this lady on CNBC talking about, how to deal with high inflation. Well, you should have a year's worth of savings saved up. Yeah, who does? Right? The bottom 80% of Americans don't. Guarantee you that because we already know the statistics on that. The top 10% of people, everybody listening to the show probably has a year's worth of savings saved up. I'm sure Danny has it. He's just got it's in his back pocket. I can see it right now. just like falling out on the floor. But this is the problem. We don't encourage savings, right? We do all this stuff tax-wise to encourage rich people to make more money, right? But we don't encourage people to save money.
Good Lord, I am turning into my father. What happened to personal responsibility and taking care of yourself? That's the problem. We've backed this up and bailed too many people out too many times that nobody feels like they ever have to do anything and say, you know what? They'll take care of it for me later.
I agree. But how are you going to change it? You got to give people
You got to stop bailing people out.
Well,
it's
right,
just
but
like,
you've either to do that or you've got to give them incentive.
Yeah. Well, everybody has that one relative that always falls, right? And you pick them up, and then at one time you finally stop, and everybody says, "Look, guys, you got to stand on your own 2 feet." What usually happens? They sink or swim.
They go to college. You said relatives that are always bailing them out. Yeah, that'd be my 2 Taliban.
Oh, man. But no, so they have tried to incentivize this in different ways. Yeah. Kevin Brady tried to come out with a universal savings account or a family savings account.
Which was a good idea.
Well, it wasn't. It was good because they were going to allow families with under $50,000 to put aside $1,000, and they're going to match it dollar for dollar with tax dollars, right? So, but it was going to be run by the government, which I don't like that aspect of it. So it's going to be the Federal Retirement Thrift Investment Board was actually going to run this account. Now, the one caveat here is that you'd be able to put these funds aside. You could use them for child care, school expenses, elder care. You could use them for medical leave, things of that nature. Mm-hmm. But it's still it's not enough. It's not enough that you're going to be able to put that money aside. And plus, families making $50,000 or less, they're under the poverty line. So how much money are those guys saving anyways? And I'm all for incentivizing them, but I'm not sure it's going to move the needle the way we need it to. And then the other aspect of this is you can only put in so much to an account like this. Like you can only put in $5,000. So same problem. Well, they could contribute to an IRA, a Roth, a traditional IRA.
Well, the Obama administration tried to do that same thing. They tried to come out with a new version of the IRA for poor people. And the problem is they don't have any money to save to start with. And of course, that thing went nowhere because the people in that income bracket don't save money. They live paycheck to paycheck, right? Exactly to your point.
It's like you mentioned. There's guys making $250,000 saying they're living paycheck to paycheck.
Well, and again,
I think we could figure something out.
And again,
with that,
and again, I want to be clear here too: is that we're talking about income taxes, right? We're just talking about income taxes. What we forget about though is all the other taxes that we pay in the economy. And so the government, when we talk about government spending, right? And this is not just national government, it's also state government, local government period, right? No matter how you want to define it. But think about all the taxes that you pay. We talk about a 20% tax bracket or a 25% tax bracket, whatever it is. The average person pays between 50 and 55% of their income in taxes. Right, and when you break it all down between gas taxes and sales tax and property tax and school tax and this tax and that tax and the other tax and then fees for other things and services that you use. I mean, if you want to know how many taxes you're paying, take a look at your phone bill to all the different taxes, your cable bill, all the different taxes that go out in that cable bill. The point is that there is all this money that floods into government, and yet they're running a $2 trillion deficit. I mean, something is seriously broken at the national, federal, state, local government levels.
There's no accountability.
And well, that's part of the problem. And we keep trying to go back and blame it on the average American for our problems and our woes, but it's got to start at the top. And that's really what we need to be focusing on. And in elections, that's what we should be voting for, right? Somewhere we lost that whole fight along the way. I'm not sure exactly where. Anyway, quick break, come back, wrap up the show. Don't go away.
Get daily investment news you can use, delivered at the speed of the internet at realinvestmentadvice.com.
Hurricane season is here, and along the Texas Gulf Coast, we know how to prepare. What we don't always know is which way the storm will go, and if a hurricane does come your way, whether your house will flood. Fortunately, you can get flood insurance. Unfortunately, flood insurance rates have skyrocketed. Don't be at risk. Let the specialists at RIA Insurance assess your needs and shop your coverage for the best rates possible. Another service from RealInvestmentAdvice.com. Click on the Insurance tab, RealInvestmentAdvice.com.
What worries you about your money? Enhance your financial success with RIA Advisors' free financial planning tool, MyBlocks. It's our online modular manager for your money and your life. Does your vision of retirement match up to reality? MyBlocks can help to determine how much you'll need and how you can achieve. Create your own personal financial vision for the next decade with MyBlocks, our free tool at RIAadvisors.com. Click on the Client Portal tab, RIAadvisors.com.
Do you know what you don't know when hiring and retaining quality employees? Compensation is more than just wages. It's personal time off, the vacation days, healthcare benefits, a 401k. Do you know what's important to them? Hi, I'm Tom Allen, RIA Advisors Retirement Plan Consultant. Let us show you how to make the most of an affordable, effective package that will deliver true value for your business and your employees. Call me toll free at 855-RIA-PLAN or online at realinvestmentadvice.com.
And now, another page from the Real Investment Advisors Investing Manifesto. Manage risk and volatility rather than trying to manage gains. You don't have to be right all the time. Long-term investing success is a 70% gain. Let us help you reach your financial goals with RIA Advisors. Neither bull nor bear. RIA Advisors, 281-501-1791 or online at realinvestmentadvice.com.
The Real Investment Show.
And welcome back to the show this morning. So a couple of things just to kind of wrap up the show. Interesting enough, Target yesterday came out and revised their profit margins down again. Second time, went from 5% in profit margins to 2%. So, that's, and also warning about increased inventories, and they're now going to have to start discounting their inventory to get it sold. So that's that kind of that initial impact of what we've been talking about now for a while when it comes to inflation, is that the reason we have inflation, and despite Janet Yellen's lack of knowledge how we got here, we shut down the economy, gave people $5 trillion, and guess what? You get inflation. Now the problem is that all that inventory that everybody started, because of all this demand, everybody starts creating a whole bunch more, product, right? We all ramp up stuff. We can't find enough people to work because we've got to produce all this product because there's so much demand in the economy. And the natural consequence of that ultimately is we produce all this inventory and then demand drops off because they don't have any money left to spend, right? It's all going to gas and food. And this is what Target's warning about right now, is that weaker sales going forward. In fact, I'm doing a report for next week on the National Federation of Independent Business, which are the small business survey, and all across their metrics, sales are declining, employment outlooks are declining, economic growth outlooks are declining, and that's really kind of the heartbeat of America. About 80% of businesses are considered small businesses in this country, and so that's a real challenge here economically. And look, there's lots of indications that we're rapidly heading towards a recession. The Atlanta Fed GDP Now, which is the real-time growth tracker, went from 1.9% at the beginning of May. In June, it was 1.3 on June the 1st. Yesterday, it was 0.9. And this is even after that employment report that came out last Friday. So, take 0.9, negative 1.4 in the first quarter, do your math. We're not doing great this year so far economically. So, definitely some challenges here. But what we're seeing across retailers right now in general is the same story. Amazon, Walmart, the two largest employers in the country and arguably probably the world, are all talking about too much staff. They have too many employees. And so that's kind of that initial phase we talked about in terms of employment. You have employment freezes, and we've heard this from a lot of people. Even Tesla has implemented a hiring freeze. The next step will be layoffs. Then the next step after that, temporary layoffs, right? We'll do furloughs, we'll temporarily lay off people, whatever it is. and then you get into actual just layoffs and firings, right? So that's just, but again, employers are slow to hire, slow to fire, so that's still coming down the road here. Keep a watch on jobless claims. When those start to rise pretty sharply, that'll really tell you where we are within the mix of things. But as we were talking about inflation and savings and taxes and all these type of things, one of the problems that the government's going to have here very shortly is a much slower economic environment. Now, the Fed next week is going to be hiking interest rates by 50 basis points. That's another break on the economy, higher rates. And they're going to start the official reduction of their balance sheet by $60 billion this month. Now, just to put that in context, that's twice the rate that they were doing on a monthly basis in 2018. And it'll be 3 times the rate by the time we get to August. So just putting that out there for you to think about. So, but in good news, Velveeta's coming out with cheese-flavored nail polish.
Cheese-flavored nail polish.
Yep. Cheese-scented nail polish.
Man, you can't make some of this stuff up.
I'd like to see Angela Johnson do a bit on that.
I don't know. There's a whole joke in here about cheese-scented nail polish and scratching your butt. I don't know what it is, but there's
Who's going to use this?
people that really like cheese.
Did they do a focus study on this? Like, what the focus group? Like, yeah, it's a great idea.
I mean, Cheetos. I could see Cheetos coming out with, Cheeto flavored.
Flaming hot.
Well, all you have to do to get that is eat them.
This is true. This is true.
Well, it's funny, like one of my kids started biting their nails, and I was like, no, we're going to start putting hot sauce on there. Maybe this is the alternative.
I did that with my son.
Yeah?
He loves hot sauce.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Backfired?
Total backfire. I put Tabasco on there, and he'd be like,
oh, this is great.
Damn it.
Down to the nub.
Exactly.
Oh, man, that's funny.
Yeah, that's the story of my life. Anyway, everything backfires. Anyway, but yeah, so again, I think the important thing here, Danny, is we need to be looking at kind of where things are headed right now. And look, we got a lot of problems. And again, when you take a look at the electorate and what's going on, we got midterms coming up in November. I don't think there's much help coming from the government between now and November.
No, I think there can't be at the moment. I think there's going to be a lot of talk about it because the midterms coming up, especially if we continue to get poor economic data. I mean, Michael Leibowitz has a new article out at realinvestmentadvice.com and has a lot of really good graphs and charts on here showing exactly how the consumer is and corporations as far as the health of it, and it is not trending in the right direction.
Right.
As we see, consumer credit card debt is going through the roof. We're seeing personal savings rates at all-time lows, or lows since the pandemic, or not the pandemic, the financial recession back in 07, 08. So these numbers aren't presenting this great opportunity that we would typically see or would hope to see. So I know everybody, we are optimistic because I think there's a lot of opportunity there, but economically, there's some headwinds that are going to take some time to get over. Yep. I think households are going to have a difficult time for a bit. And, Jamie Dimon, you mentioned him earlier. He said, I know we talked about the CEO of Bank of America a couple of weeks ago, how he's optimistic. And Jamie Dimon said, man, households have like 6 to 9 months of personal savings before they're in trouble. And now we're already seeing the credit levels rise. I think we could be in it a little bit sooner than we expect. The interesting thing we were talking about earlier, you hear so much information on, both sides of the coin. And one thing last night I was looking at, it says, get ready for an expensive summer. And then the next article, like 20 minutes later, talks about Target has increased inventory. So does Walmart, all these other places. And you're going to be able to find things on sale. But I think it's going to depend on what you're looking for. Right?
Yeah, well, I think that's always the case. It's always kind of dependent on what you look for. There's certain items that always hold a high price. Ammo right now is holding a very high price. There's a lot of other items that, I think we're going to see, come down a lot in price because we produced a lot of that kind of stuff because there was a lot of, needed demand at that time that we thought. And now that some of that, now that people are going back to work, right? So we saw a lot of production in areas for people that wanted to work at home, right? So we saw
furniture.
A lot of it. Yeah, but we saw stuff like Zoom, right? The Zoom video stock price went through the roof because everybody's gonna be working at home, right? But now we're seeing we'll see a deflation in a lot of those areas. I wouldn't be surprised to see retailers like Home Depot and Lowe's start to come under pressure price-wise because everybody was fixing up their house. They did all that. Now they don't have that money to do that anymore. So
yeah, but do you think maybe that one still stays just because if rates are rising, people are going to be less inclined to move?
Yeah, no. I'm not saying, and look, that stock's already been under a tremendous amount of pressure. I mean, the stock was 420, it's down to 301. So, Home Depot. No, I'm just saying is that we could see additional pressure because remember during the pandemic, everybody was like adding a deck and they were buying riding lawnmowers for their 2-foot square yard and all this type of stuff. And because they had all this extra money, now they don't have that, and they're having to, pay more for gas and food. So some of those, I'm talking more about the home improvement projects that we saw. I think that's going to probably tail off, a good bit here. But no, I think a lot of people are going to, have to focus on keeping repairs of their house up and that type of thing because they can't afford to move or don't want to move right now because,
people are priced
can't buy
out.
anything. Yeah.
That's exactly right. So when the inflationary, it's interesting. You mentioned Janet Yellen, and the World Bank says that we're going to have persistent inflation, which they've been wrong. And you thinking back, you're right. I can't think of a time that she was probably. I don't know if she's ever hit the nail on the head when it comes to this. And look, it's a moving target. It's not the easiest.
Okay, but
thing.
there's a difference between missing the nail and hitting a board that's on the other side of the house. I mean,
that's true. That's true.
I mean, she's not even been in the ballpark, and even when she was head of the Federal Reserve, she wasn't even close to being in the ballpark.
She wasn't even hitting foul balls. She was striking
exactly.
out.
Well, she wasn't even at the plate. She was over in the dugout swinging. So, anyway.
Yeah, but I think that's going to be something that we're going to have to watch for. And I think, Lance, we talked about this on our bond Lunch and Learn last week, the webinar, which you can find on the YouTube channel, The Real Investment Show, that, just because they're raising rates doesn't mean that we're going to see bond yields just surge. We've had a really difficult time. It's interesting. Wall Street Journal finally pointed something out that the market does not like it when rates hit about 3% on the 10-year. And, I know we hit it in 2018. We hit 3.24. We've been a little bit higher at 3.1. What's the projections here is what I think everybody wants to know. And how high can rates go?
Yeah. Well, I mean, look, there's a point where you have an economic impact, and you're already seeing it. I mean, you just talked about housing, and you're seeing that across the board with housing markets and what's going on there. And so if rates rise much more from here, it's going to continue to further degrade economic viability, which at some point the Federal Reserve then has to go, hey, you know what? We got to start cutting rates again. Yep. And, that's just going to be that's a function. We're going to be back in QE and zero interest rates. There's no doubt about that. It's just a question of timing. Is it next month? Is it 6 months from now? What is it? That's just a function of timing, though. But we'll be there.
Yeah, but we don't have that 10% concern of yields. I think that we continue to hear that yields are going to keep rising. I remember the 70s and 80s. Well, that was a much, much different time. If you look at the account for what business debt and government debt is, significantly different.
Everything's different.
Nobody wants to service that.
Exactly. All right, wraps up the show for the day. Danny Ratliff, thanks for joining me this morning. Be sure to go by the website. That new article by Michael Lebowitz is out, of course, while you're there. Also, check out our do-it-yourself page. You can see all of our digital models. We now have revamped that page. So simply go to the investing tab and go to do-it-yourself. You can see all of our different portfolios in our digital platform. That's available for you as well. All at the website, realinvestmentadvice.com. All right, have a great day. We'll be back tomorrow, wrapping up the week and heading into the end of the week with Michael Lebowitz, talking more about the Fed and the hike next week. What does that mean for markets and your money? That'll be tomorrow. 3 minutes of Markets Money coming right up. Don't go away.
It's a rich man's world. It's a rich man's world.